Now, at least 8 suspects have been shot dead during an attempted cash-in-transit heist in Johannesburg. The shootout took place in Rosettenville. 8 suspects have been arrested. 4 police officers were wounded and 2 were airlifted to hospital. Our reporter Aviwe Mtila is following that story and joins us now for the very latest. Aviwe, you've been there for a while now, and surely you've been watching the developments around this particular cash-in-transit heist. You've just mentioned to me that it is now an active crime scene and police are combing through to find any evidence that they can.
Yes, those crime scene investigators as well as the forensics combing through the scene this very moment. In fact, the house that you see behind me, colleague, is the safe house where we do understand these 25 CIT robbers were converging. This incident happening at around 4:30 this afternoon, and those that were here will tell you that it was a shootout of about an hour after these suspects saw then the police helicopter hovering above here, given that the police had the intelligence of these movements, keeping track on the 25 suspects for at least a week now. They knew that today would be the day that would head out for the CIT heist, and in fact they busted them just before that happened. So it was a hectic scene here in terms of the police shooting out with these suspects. Speaking to the police commissioner earlier, telling me that it was pound for pound. The concerning issue, you'd see even those circles that are on the ground where the bullets would be. What's concerning is that this safe house is right across St. Martin's School, colleague. A school, you have to understand, luckily at that time at 4:30 as this incident was happening, the school was already shut and the students, learners were essentially home already. But concerning that, a safe house that houses, we do understand, the bombs that were mentioned here, the high-powered rifles that were mentioned there, 8 of them, and we understand hijacked vehicles. So that safe house is right across this St. Martin's School. But on the street itself, you'd see there's a BMW parked right dead middle on the road there. In fact, riddled with bullets there. And I tell you this very moment, the crime scene investigators, colleague, telling me that there are people, the dead people inside. They're part of the 8 robbers that lost their lives. 8 of them have been apprehended and arrested, and 9 still on the loose. But the police minister, of course, also paying a visit here at around 7 p.m. Today as the fresh crime scene was happening, detailing some of what was happening. Let's listen to Police Minister Bheki Cele.
These guys were about 25 of them, this group. 8 of them are dead and 8 are arrested. We still want some more that have moved there. Surprisingly, without fail except one who comes from Botswana, they all come from Zim and KZN. Surprisingly. I think 4 of them will be from KZN, the rest is from Zim, and the one from Botswana. They're well armed, they all have mostly AKs, about 6 or 7 AKs here, and with double magazines, which means they are there for the business. Surprising one is the one that shot the helicopter and injured the pilot, and injured the pilot assistant. So we are working with heartless people that are prepared to kill. I asked the one from Umutu, what is this? What's happening? He said, Njala. I said, come on, man, there is no Njala that buys you AK and all those kind of things and come you kill people.
Very scary details that have been detailed by the police minister there in terms of how ready and experienced this group of criminals were, Aviwe. But I'm thinking everybody wants to know what they are dealing with here when it comes to these criminals, the kind of expertise and also the motive that they have to have tried to carry out such a huge heist.
Very hardened criminals, colleague. In fact, the crime scene itself is quite scary. We're just on the side of the safe house, but if you were to turn around, you'd understand it's cordoned off this very moment. You'd see the gruesome scene there. The shoot-off, of course, was happening right on the street that you see there, where the BMW is parked this very moment, riddled with bullets. But on the wall itself, you'd see how littered it is itself with the bullets. Of course, as the police commissioner mentioned, how they were going pound for pound. These are hardened criminals that have been on the police radar. These criminals, in fact, have been noted in speaking to Elias Mawela, the police commissioner, suggesting that they have had CITs in the past. They were carrying high-powered rifles, 8 of those high-powered rifles, 5 bombs, you do understand. That would tell you the level of the criminals that we're dealing with here. 25 of them, 9 still on the loose. But what you see over here are some of the South African Police Service members that, in fact, it was a joint effort between the SAPS, the Ekurhuleni Metro Police, as well as the Johannesburg Metro Police. Some of these gentlemen in civilian clothing are part of those that were here at that shootout, which we do understand happened about 4:30. It lasted for about an hour. That would tell you just even the level of ammunition that was here. It's only by the grace of God, I suppose, that no one lost their lives in terms of the civilians, and only 8 of these suspects, in fact, succumbed to the wounds of that very shootout. 8 of them arrested, still 9 of them in the loose. But just to get the details, colleague, in terms of what we're dealing with here, listen again to the police minister, Bheki Cele, in detailing these criminals.
In our operation, there was a helicopter, and they shot the helicopter. What more do you want them to do? They shot the helicopter. They injured a pilot even before he landed. It could have been both the helicopter, the assistant, and the pilot all dying. So you really can't ask anything of declaration of war, shooting the helicopter. Besides, there are police that are in hospital as we speak. We hope that they are not serious. But they shot the helicopter before anybody did anything to them.
Aviwe, we have run out of time, but I'm just wondering, and perhaps you'll furnish us with the details once you engage those in the community a little bit further, but is there any plan for the school tomorrow? I assume it may have to remain closed for some period of time, given that it is an active crime scene, and the lives of children in the area could be in danger potentially still.
The very issue I was going to point out is cordoned off this very moment. The school itself, St. Martin's School, cordoned off, part of the investigations that you'd understand are still happening here. So you'd expect that tomorrow it will be closed, depending in fact on these continuous investigations and where the police would have been. But you see time to time there are teams that are coming in that are just combing through the scene. We do understand it's crime scene experts as well as the forensics here. In fact, I want to catch up with one of the neighbors that's looking out here. I'm not sure if she's willing to give us a quick comment on, maybe, ma'am, were you around when this happened earlier on in the day? Do you mind coming closer?
Yes, I was around.
You were around?
Yes.
Do you mind? Yes, ma'am. Just tell us what was happening and what were you going through as this happened here?
Well, I heard the helicopter very low, came outside, and suddenly everything just erupted. Shooting, it sounded like the Wild Wild West. And there was a lot of shooting, a lot of smoke from the gunfire, people running and cars rushing up and down. And yeah, it was exciting, to say the least.
To say the least, definitely. But how long did this last, and how did you just protect yourself?
I actually videoed a clip of the sound for over 6 minutes. So the shooting went on at one stage for over 6 minutes.
The shooting itself.
And that was the second time that there was a whole sort of volley of shooting. So yeah, these poor guys, the cops had a tough time.
And aren't you concerned then, given that the safe house is right across your house here? Have you known about this safe house?
I was just saying they were quite good neighbors. They weren't noisy. They didn't interfere with anybody. They didn't make trouble. They seemed to be very nice people. Well, you hardly ever saw them, so they were good neighbors.
They were good neighbors. And just going forward, there's the safe.
You.
that you can really never know your neighbors. And going forward, the safety of the community, you're not concerned, given it's right across the school, even the safe house?
It can happen anywhere, you know, these things, how can you control this? So you just have to live and hope for the best.
Live and hope for the best. Is one of the neighbors here, of course, following that shootout here. That happened at around 4:30. One point, she says that the bullets rang out for at least 6 minutes, which we do understand, of course. Some of the neighbors detailing how that entire shootout, colleague, happened for around an hour here. Concerning scenes, given that it's right across St. Martin's schools here.
Yeah, absolutely. A very insightful account from the neighbour of you, and I'm hoping that you'll be able to get that video from her so we can reflect on exactly the events that unfolded and led to the deaths of the suspects as well as the wounded police officers. Senior reporter Aviwe Mtila joining us from Rosettenville, reporting on developments around that shootout between police and hardened criminals earlier today.